Most men think they lose their relationship because they said the wrong thing, or didn't do enough, or fix things fast enough when she started to pull away. But that's not actually why most relationships fall apart. What really ends them is doing the right thing in the wrong phase. Because when a woman pulls away emotionally, there is a sequence happening underneath the surface, and almost every man makes a critical mistake at the most important part. And once you make that mistake, everything you do after that, even if well-intended, sends her down the road that will make it nearly impossible to get her back from. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 phases that always happen when a woman pulls away, the exact phase where most men panic and destroy attraction, and watch to the very end because I'll tell you what actually changes the trajectory before her emotional distance turns permanent. And by the way, make sure you pay close attention to phase 2. Before we jump in, if you appreciate me making this type of content, go ahead and hit the like button so YouTube finds other men who need this help as well. Let's get into it. If you've watched some of my other videos, you've often heard me talk about why trying harder backfires in relationships when they get to a point where she's starting to pull away emotionally. But today, we're not just talking about why something doesn't work. We're talking about when that effort causes failure, because most men don't fail due to lack of effort or care. They fail because they move to the wrong emotional phase too early, where their intentions don't give them the desired result. Think of this part of your relationship like trying to rebuild a house when an earthquake is still happening. The foundation is moving in a rocky way, so no matter how beautiful your structure is, or the structure being the effort you're putting in, the relationship still collapses because that rocky emotional foundation is what you're still trying to build it on. So let's talk about phase 1, which is what I like to call the signal phase. This is where she starts to pull away but hasn't actually left yet. This is when she becomes quieter, colder, less responsive, and less emotionally available. She may still be there physically, and she may still tell you that she loves you, but you sense a little bit of something in her that has pulled back a bit. At this stage, she has not made a final decision where she is done with you or where she's going to completely be gone. She's just reacting to herself internally. Emotionally for you, this phase is like a warning light on the dashboard. It's not a full-blown engine with smoke that you can see out front of the windshield yet. What's actually happening here is that her nervous system is overloaded and she feels pretty confused about the relationship and probably internally disconnected from herself. So that emotionally crowded confusion starts to impact her, and instead of leaning into you more, this is where her system starts to lean out and those initial signs of pulling away start to happen. This is to protect herself emotionally and really just to be in a place where she can figure out what's going on inside. It isn't necessarily directly about you in this point in time. The worst thing a man can do here in phase 1 is increase emotional intensity. And that leads us into the phase that makes or breaks men who are wanting to save their relationship. Phase 2, the interpretation phase. This is the most dangerous phase, not because of what she does, but because of what you tell yourself. This is the phase that most men don't even realize exists. Men don't react to her pulling away. They react to the story they tell themselves about her pulling away. And that story is usually some version of, I'm losing her. If I don't act now, it is over, and I need to prove that I care. If I can just make her see. This is where fear takes over the driver's seat, and that fear for you starts to feel like rejection, abandonment, failure, and becoming that man who loses his family. So when this fear takes over in phase 2, you start operating from urgency instead of leadership and try to resolve that anxiety for yourself. And stabilizing the relationship actually starts to go out of focus and out the window in your thought. This is the exact moment the attraction starts to die to the point of no return, and men just keep digging that hole constantly. This is why talking it through so often fails. Not because communication is bad, but because the emotional timing of the communication is often wrong. So if you start panicking and pushing for clarity during the interpretation phase, she is hearing less and less understanding on your end and more demands to quench your emotional neediness and need for reassurance. This is why phase 2 is so critical. It is all about your understanding of how masculine feminine energy works and your role as the leader in the relationship. Unfortunately, most men never make it out of phase 2 alive, relationship speaking, because they make the critical interpretation error and go down the path of acting out of their fears. However, if you started to go down this route, it does not mean you cannot fix it. You have to immediately focus on phase 3. Phase 3 is the stabilization phase. This is the phase that changes everything and the one that almost no man naturally enters because of the mistakes that they've made in phase 2, the interpretation phase. But phase 3, the stabilization phase, what's important to understand about this phase is that attraction doesn't come back through closeness. It starts to come back through the emotional stabilization. This fact alone is deeply counterintuitive to most men because And I say we because this was me for a long time during all the failures in my own romantic life. But we all think if I can just reconnect and prove how much I love her and get closer to her, she's going to feel that closeness again. Without having the emotional stabilization, which is when you are able to have regulation of your emotions and stop the drastic spikes, your behavior becomes predictable and your presence feels calm and grounded to her. All of that closeness just starts to weigh on your lady, and it builds up like layers of pressure if you don't have the stabilization. I want to talk a little bit further about what the stabilization looks like so we're on the same page. Stabilization in terms of emotions does not mean you ignore her or act aloof purposely so that she doesn't sense any emotion from you. It means your emotional center of gravity moves back inside yourself. You stop trying to pull her towards you, and instead you become a place she can move towards on her own. When a woman feels no emotional demand from you, something subtle shifts and her emotions are able to have some space, which is key to breathe again, and where this is where she's going to be able to process her emotions without you putting added pressure on her. This phase feels unbearable to a lot of men because it requires self-leadership instead of external control. There's no scripts or tactics that just guarantee some immediate validation, and that's why it becomes so difficult for a lot of men, and they abandon it too early because they mistake being calm for inaction. So the big takeaway from this video is to stop asking how you can get her to come back and start asking yourself what phase you're actually in and are you acting ahead of it? Because when you stop escalating in phase 1, you interrupt your fear-driven stories in phase 2, and you learn how to lead with stability via phase 3, you will completely change the emotional climate in your relationship in a reliable and consistent way that starts to turn it around. It isn't magically done or flipping it on a dime overnight, but it steadily rights the ship. If you are serious about saving your marriage or relationship, you cannot afford to get this wrong. This is exactly the work I do inside my relationship rebuild program, rebuilding emotional regulation, self-respect, and the understanding of polarity. This gives you all the tools that help you change the emotional environment for yourself and for your relationship. Inside my free masterclass, I walk you through the step-by-step framework that teaches you how to regulate yourself in real time and build the skills to be the leader that is an absolute game changer for your relationship and the rest of your life. Click on the link in the description below and watch that masterclass today for free. Also, please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in a later episode.